Welcome back to the New Mexico Business Podcast. Who am I here with today?
My name is also Vantastic.
It's an amazing name. And so what do you do, Austin?
I'm both a finished carpenter and Ayurvedic practitioner.
Okay. And so what got you started in those businesses?
So my first career was in film and television. I got terribly sick and I healed through Ayurveda, and that's what led me down the Ayurvedic path. While pursuing the Ayurvedic path and trying to grow that side of the business, I also worked in restaurants because I believed that would bring people to Ayurveda through food.
Could you
However,
explain what that is?
Ayurveda,
Yeah.
Ayur means life, and Veda means science or wisdom. And so it's an ancient Indian science that is like how to live life. And predominantly, it's focused around healing. But it covers everything literally from before you're born till the day you die. So, how you take care of your body, how you heal from sickness, mending wounds, all sorts of things like this.
Okay. And so what got you started down the carpentry path?
Working in the restaurants, trying to build an Ayurvedic culinary business and not really knowing much about business. One of my friends had suggested that I could do like handyman work. So I started doing that on the weekends, and I very quickly started making more money on the weekends than I was all week at the restaurant. So I left the restaurants and started pursuing the handiwork full time. And that eventually evolved into me doing finished carpentry, which I enjoy a lot more. The artistic, creative, problem solving, design, rather than just fixing somebody's loose door hinges or something.
Yeah. So finished carpentry is your main thing, but what are the other things you do,
I
Austin?
really market myself as a finished carpenter, but people will contact me for all manner of things. They want paint jobs done, drywall done.
I had a junk removal job where someone wanted a lot of paint removed. So I looked up on Google painter in Santa Fe and you were the first person to pop up.
Yeah, the SEO that I've got going on for the carpentry handy stuff is like amazing.
And that's all through Thumbtack?
Correct.
And so what is your experience with Thumbtack then?
Thumbtack is sweet. It's gone through some evolution since I've been using it. I started using it in 2020. When I first started using it, I believe whoever the owners were, or maybe they were like just getting off the ground. But the customer service was amazing. I had like easy access to representatives that were like very interested in helping me. I became a top pro on the platform very quickly, and that's just figured out in matter of like your response time to clients and how many times you're hired and the ratings that you get. So I found a lot of benefit through that, and then I believe that the company was probably sold or changed ownership, changed management, something like that. And there was like a year and a half, 2 years that were a total pain. The leads were very poor quality. The leads got way more expensive, and it was impossible to get a hold of a representative when I needed help to like dispute something. But they've gone through their learning phase on the back end, and it's returned now to like a pretty high quality platform for connecting contractors with clients.
So is Thumbtack the only place you go to for leads?
Thumbtack is my primary source of leads, especially right now. I've just moved to Santa Fe in June of 25. Um, so I'm getting some more referrals through my clients. But yeah, the primary source of my leads comes through Thumbtack.
Okay. And where did you come from?
I moved here most recently from the Metro Detroit area.
Okay.
Metro Detroit area.
So was there a culture shift coming from there to here?
Oh my God, yeah, that was like the reason I moved here.
Here to Santa Fe.
Yeah, to Santa Fe. Yeah, Detroit. So it's where I grew up, but it's not really where I would want to live. I only ended up back in Detroit because of COVID. I was studying Ayurveda and yoga in India at the time, and then COVID hit, and I knew before I was in India, I was in New York City. I didn't want to go back to New York City, but I didn't know where I wanted to go. So I just went back to Detroit as like a default to like, let me catch my bearings and figure out what I want to do next. So I was there for a few years, just working, building my craft and my business, and continuing my education in Ayurveda. One of my best friends, who I lived with in New York City, he moved to Santa Fe. I came to visit him, and I was like, "Whoa, this place is sweet." Detroit metro area, Michigan, is the people are like very cold. They're very guarded. So I had no social circle. I had no friends, despite lots of trying, joining a running club and a chess club and a boxing gym and like all these different things to try and generate friendships, and they all just went nowhere. So having moved to Santa Fe, I mean, I have like a great group of friends and social circle, and I continue to meet new people, doing lots of stuff, mountain biking, rock climbing, um, going to the Go meetups on the weekend, and yeah,
Jens meetups.
yeah, Jens meetups. Having met you, I mean, there's just so many contacts, like so many people that are interested in engaging with other people in Santa Fe. Whereas in Michigan, like unless you go to church, school, family with someone or work with them, like you're not going to be friends, which is pretty brutal.
What was your experience like in India?
India was amazing. I went to India with no expectations. And it was actually, yeah, like while I was in India, I remember one person specifically asking me, it was like, oh, is it living up to your expectations? And I was like, India is India. Like, I didn't know what it would be. And so, yeah, it was just perfect as it was. My experience there, so I was primarily staying at an ashram in Rajasthan, which is on the north west side of India in the desert. And um, yeah, my primary focus was studying Ayurveda and then tantric yoga to advance my spiritual path.
And so, what's the climate like there?
Similar to here, actually. It's probably a bit hotter than it is here, and less green, but it's the desert, so yeah, it's just sand and hot. The summer days were it'd be like 110 or more degrees, and it was so hot and so dry. You would sweat, but you wouldn't really see the sweat on the skin. You would just like get salt crystals like building up.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And so, what's the food like there?
Rajasthan's cuisine is a lot different than what we know Indian food here in the West. So most of the Indian food that we experience here in the United States is Southern Indian food. So it's rice-based dishes, and then just kind of like their signature would-be menu. The Rajasthan dishes are more bread-based. So you'd have like chapati, which is like a wheat tortilla, basically. Or at the ashram that we were at, we had sogra a lot, which is a millet flatbread. And yeah, a lot of the dishes were just very different from anything that I expected or like understood Indian food to be.
And did you ever get an understanding of Indian culture while you were there?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wouldn't consider myself an Indian cultural expert by any means, but yeah, it was very interesting just to live in their lives. I mean, I was frequently the only Westerner, amidst a group of Indians. Um, and yeah,
Were they accepting?
very accepting. Yeah. Well, the thing too within India is guests are considered as God. And so whoever it is that's visiting your home, you just really like roll out the red carpet for them. I like slept in people's beds because like the homeowners would be like, "Oh no, you stay like here because it's the nicest bed in the house." And they would rather sleep on the floor themselves than make me sleep on the floor.
Why was that?
I'm not sure what the origination is for that. India is a very spiritual place, and um, yeah, I think it's just a matter of like if you're considering your guests as God, it's a deep spiritual practice and level of humility and like humbleness to put others before yourself.
So, you said you got to start in film and TV. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, when I was in high school, as many high schoolers are like trying to figure out what they're going to do for their lives, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do for mine. And I was both very interested in culinary and film and television. Ultimately, chose film and television as my first career. So I went to film school. I had a couple of silly jobs around the Metro Detroit area, but then I caught a break, I guess you could say. There was a New York City film crew that came to Detroit to film a show about high school football teams, and I worked on that show, and I like begged and pleaded one of the producers to like take me back to New York City to work on the next show, and that was my foot in the door. So I moved to New York City, and I just hustled my butt off, and I worked my way from a production assistant to assistant camera to tech supervisor to camera operator to director of photography in a matter of like 4 or 5 years. which was a pretty aggressive growth path.
And what skills did that give you?
Oh my God. I learned so much. Obviously, a lot of technical skill that's like specific to the industry and using cameras. But every show that I worked on was very different. So I worked primarily in reality television. So I did tattoo shows, fashion shows, cop shows, uh, housewife shows. But dealing with all the different people, dealing with all the different environments, shooting on locations. Um, yeah, there's just a massive amount of skill in, I suppose, like, yeah, handling different people in different environments.
And then, so what was the timeline on that? You went to New York, and then you went to India.
Yeah, so I moved to New York first in 2011, and primarily from 2011 to 2019, I was working in the industry. Um, with a little bit of traveling and education hiatuses. Uh, 2019, I went to India to study yoga and Ayurveda. COVID hit March of 2020. Um, I got stuck in India, so my studies were indefinitely extended. I ended up being there until August, September of 2020. And then I finally made it back to the States, and that's when I started the carpentry. Was in yeah, 2020 or 2021, I guess now. Yeah.
How did India handle COVID?
It was pretty chill. Right at the beginning, it was very serious, so there was domestic lockdown, so you weren't even allowed to like really go out your front door. But once the domestic ban lifted, and I could travel around within India, I did start moving around, just cabin fever. And yeah, and people were really nice. The people who were nice, but there was also, because of the media or whatever understanding was going on, I would go around. I was turned away from a lot of different hotels, so I had to call in a lot of favors from friends and like ask around of like where I could stay. I would go into shops, and like taxis and stuff like that would automatically refuse me because they assumed that anybody who was not an Indian automatically had COVID. They didn't they, they weren't thinking that like I had been in India since the pandemic started. They were like, oh, I traveled here from outside, so I'm a foreign person, so I'm carrying this like foreign disease. Um, so I ran into a little bit of that. But once I kind of got into, one of my friends is a hotel owner in Jodhpur, Rajasthan, and once I got to stay there, I'd go to the barber shop and I'd like sit with them and drink chai and just chill. They spoke English, and then there's another couple of like shop owners that I knew, and I'd just go chill at their shop and hang out and wait until I could get a flight back to the U.S.
Did you ever learn Indian?
I learned some Hindi. Really,
Is that the language? Is that the Hindi is the language?
Hindi is like the English of India. So all the different states have different dialects in their own like local language. But Hindi is kind of like the uniting language of the country, and English as well. I mean, there's loads of English speakers in India, especially in the more urban areas. Um, but yeah, I did learn some Hindi, enough to say like good morning, good night, hello, thank you, and like order food.
So, what did you learn about Ayurveda in India?
Ooh, the doctor that I was studying underneath, his primary specialty is in panchakarma, which is a really powerful cleansing and healing methodology in the Ayurvedic science as a whole. Pancha means five, and karma is actions. And so you go through this like specific sequence of actions of detoxifying and rejuvenating the body to eradicate a disease.
And so, you started this because you were sick?
Yeah, I started learning Ayurveda because I was sick when I was working in film and television. I was like working hard, partying hard, hard lifestyle, a lot of stress, a lot of pressure from the industry, and my body gave out on me, and I was having really like shredding abdominal pains, and um, yeah, I was just like suffering pretty bad, and I was in and out of the doctors for like 6 months, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. They did every test and scan that they could, um, and they tried putting me on a few different medications, and I found zero relief from any of the treatments that I received. And then I found Ayurveda, and within 1 week, I started to feel better. And I was like, what the hell is this stuff? And I'm like, how do I get more?
What is the process of Ayurveda?
It's individualized, which is one of the most beautiful things about it. So, personalized medicine, Ayurveda really looks at you as an individual to diagnose what disease you have right now, how that disease developed, and what are the specific things that you need to unwind or release that disease from your body. Whereas in Western medicine, you, me, and anybody else, if you have a headache, you take a headache pill, and like that's the end of it. So it doesn't matter if your headache came from digestion or stress or a lump on the head. It's the same pill for the same symptom, and that's probably like the biggest difference between the two different sciences of medicine.
So, are you a believer in painkillers?
One Ayurvedic doctor mentor of mine told me, if the choice is between death and poison, take the poison. So a lot of pharmaceuticals do have side effects, but if it means you'll survive the day, then it's worth taking. And for me in my own personal life, I actually just had like the flu a couple weeks ago, and I took Dayquil to help alleviate the symptoms, but I also was taking Ayurvedic herbs to help heal my body and rejuvenate my body. And so I was able to kick it in like 3 or 4 days, whereas some people get sick and they're sick for 2 weeks because they're not actually healing their body and like rejuvenating the tissues and eliminating the toxins that are creating the imbalance. They're just taking Dayquil to mask the symptoms. So I believe that there can be a synergy between Western medicine and Ayurvedic medicine to really bring about pretty radical healing.
What makes you different than everyone else in your carpentry?
Um, I don't know if I've really like found my style necessarily in carpentry, um, but I would say what differentiates me from a lot of other carpenters is creative problem solving. So my ability to help design and build and install a piece for a client that fits all their needs, I think is pretty unique to me. I just built, built and installed a removable built-in because the client had a two-in-one washer dryer unit and a instant water heater, wall water heater, and in case those items ever needed to be serviced, this whole thing needed to be removable. And from the outside, it looks like a box, but really it's just floating pieces in space that have connected in the middle to have the appearance of a box. Um, and the function of the furniture, that piece is now they have like loads of storage and they've closed off this otherwise like relatively ugly uh, corner of their home. And then, yeah, if ever needs work, it'll be easy for them to take away and put back.
What's an example of a project you're working on right now?
Right now, I'm in the draft phase of a custom bookcase for one of my clients. So we met in person, we measured the area. She sent me a bunch of inspiration photos that she liked. We talked about different types of material and finish that she wanted. So yeah, I do manual drafting, furniture drafting, and I'll propose that to her. And if she approves it, then we'll move forward with the project.
Where do you get your materials from?
Locally, I mostly try and get all of my lumber from Alpine Lumber. Um, I do like to support local businesses here in Santa Fe and New Mexico. That said, sometimes it's challenging to avoid big box stores for the materials or items that they have that I need. Um, but yeah, for woodworking, Alpine Lumber is really my primary source.
Is there anything that surprised you about working in New Mexico, Santa Fe specifically?
I think the biggest thing that's been interesting is walls, really. Uh, it's really hard to find 2x4s, like studs, in anybody's house. And then there's also obviously a lot of Adobe here. Venetian plaster was something that was new to me. So working with that is like mounting or doing any work with the walls where I need to do installations. Um, making sure that I pre-drill before I do anything, so I don't crack the plaster and create spiders. And then the other thing that I found really interesting here in New Mexico that's different from the Northeast is there's almost like no trim or molding around like doors and windows and stuff like that. Everything just like butts right into each other.
What is trim and molding?
Like casing that would be around a door, or trim around a window, or baseboards. This house does have baseboards, but most houses that I've been in like don't have any baseboards, so the wall just meets the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas like in Michigan, there's ridiculous amounts of trim.
Are you a fan of baseboards, trim, and molding?
um, it definitely makes work easier in a way. So if you're doing flooring or drywall work, um, it helps with like covering those gaps. Um, so it makes that easier. But I do really like the clean look because I feel like a lot of trim and molding can just get like gaudy and like get in the way. It also gets beat up a lot. So it seems like the walls are almost in better condition without the molding here, which I find interesting.
Is there any type of jobs you want more of?
I would definitely like to do, yeah, more finished carpentry and custom furniture. I feel like I need to build more custom furniture pieces and like maybe have them in some of the galleries around town, like just have more of my work on display. Because most of all the custom furniture that I've done is all commission work. Well, yeah, it would naturally be commission work. Um, but it's always the vision of the client with my own, interpretation or technical adjustments. If somebody wanted a table like this with only two legs, I'd be like, that's a beautiful design, but most tables have three or more legs, So it's then how do you figure out how to make these things work for clients based on their vision? Um, I think it would be valuable for me to create some of my own pieces for my own vision, which I do have a few sketches of pieces that I'd like to make, and then just get them out there for more people to see, and then yeah, get more of that custom furniture work.
What's something in your business you can improve on?
Nothing. I'm amazing.
Keep that in. That's great.
uh, no, I'm sure there's always room to grow. Maybe taking it a little bit slower. Often trade work is charged or considered by hour. And I think quality really suffers when time is the measurement of value. So changing that value measurement to quality rather than speed. I do work fast. I am a hard worker. It's just in my nature. But I think, yeah, slowing myself down a little bit and really focusing on higher quality craftsmanship, I think would be of greater value to myself and to my clients.
What is your favorite restaurant in town?
Oh, that's a good question. My favorite restaurant was Jumbo Cafe when I first moved here. But now that I've been here for a while and I've tried so many other different places, it's probably hard for me to pick one favorite. But Jumbo's on, top one. I also really like Valentina's, New Mexican cuisine. Um, I haven't really tried any of the more like high-end restaurants. I When I was working in culinary, I worked in fine dining and Michelin star restaurants, and I got really kind of turned off from the scene. I find that I really enjoy a lot more like mom and pop shops where it's like the owner is like either there daily or is cooking or something like that. Um, Food like that comes from the heart, comes from the soul, means a lot more to me than fancy plates and china, fancy china and crystalware on the table.
Well, thank you for coming on today, Austin.
Pleasure.
And how can people find you?
The best way to find me, you can also just Google Carpenter Santa Fe, and I'll be one of the top results. But my business profile is Austin Vantastic on Thumbtack. And I do have an Instagram that's highly neglected but available is luckywood_LLC.
Right. All of those will be in the description.